What's poppin', y'all? It's Team Player back again with another banger video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Pikachu with gray felt hat card and the drama and controversy surrounding it. Let me go ahead and just start by saying, I think we as a community collectively should stop buying this card, at least for now. And if you'll bear with me until the end, I'll explain my reasoning, and I think we can get the price to go lower than it even is right now. So let's go ahead. Let's start here, looking at the card on TCG Player, and my goodness, it is an absolutely gorgeous card. Don't get me wrong. I think a card this beautiful could definitely warrant a price tag along these lines. However, the card itself is not rare, right? And that's why we need to go ahead and get into supply and demand. I'm not going to go through this entire thing. Basically, all you need to know is that when supply is high and demand is low, the price will be low. But when the opposite is the case, demand is high, supply is low, the price will be high, right? But what happens when both the price and demand, oh my goodness, when supply and demand are both high? And this was a question that I didn't even know the answer to, so that's why I had this brought up. And for some reason, it's not highlighted anymore, but it's not a big deal. If both demand and supply increase, consumers wish to buy more and firms wish to supply more, so output will increase. However, since consumers place a higher value on each unit, but producers are willing to supply each unit at a lower price, the effect on price will depend on the relative size of the two changes. Right? Now, this is a little bit different because it's not the Pokemon company anymore. We're now dealing with scalpers who have the card in their possession. But what does this mean, right? It was kind of just a bunch of gibberish, if you will. But basically, all we need to know is that this is because the impact changes in demand and supply may offset each other, right? Basically, we have no clue where the price should fall because there's a ton of cards. Everybody wants it, right? So where should the price be? And it causes uncertainty in the price, but it makes it easier to determine how many of the cards will be available, right? That's, I guess, the most basic way I could really understand that, and maybe I'm wrong there. But either way, let's push on. The card itself is in high demand. We know this. I mean, look, every single day, there are multiple copies of the card being exchanged. And somebody got a really good deal up here. I don't remember where it was. 61 bucks. Nah, it was like $50 for it. It was kind of crazy. But you can see demand is high. Cards trading hands every single day here on eBay. That's not a question. But what about the supply? This is also high. We're looking at the PSA pop report right now. 27,388 cards have been graded at PSA. 27,000. This card came out in September. We're only in March, right? That's a 5-month period basically, and this is already one of the most graded cards at PSA. Month over month, it has been, right? Definitely. Pretty crazy. Again, this card is not rare. The supply is extremely high. People do want the card though. But I fear, especially with the 100,000 copies that they injected into the market, we're not at the bottom. This card is going to keep falling in price, right? I'm not exactly sure where on here the reprint happened where they supplied the Netherlands with more. I'm gonna assume it was about January time, I thought, right? And then you could just see the card just start to fall off a metaphorical cliff, right? And I still do not think we're at the bottom. If we, the consumers, decide to not purchase the card, we decide this is too high, we do not want to pay these prices to scalpers who shouldn't have had the card in the first place, and we probably should have the discussion of the Pokemon company should have rolled this out better. The bots were all over the place. A friend of mine got like 6 or 7 copies of the card. Meanwhile, I couldn't even get on the website because it was crashing and I was working. So it's not like I can devote a whole bunch of time to try to get this card for the $12 or $16 it really, really did cost, because you got it for free. The Pokemon Company wanted you to have this card in your hands. And the scalpers that we all got too familiar with during the pandemic have pretty much cornered the market on this, and it started extremely high. Extremely, extremely high. So that's it. That's supply and demand. We've gone through that. Again, there is so much supply of this card. The PSA reports we're going to compare to some other rare cards, like some actual hard cards to get to pull in the similar price range. But fear of missing out, FOMO, has caused this high demand. The Scream cards, I didn't pull this up, but I can pull it up really quickly, is a very, very rare and sought after card. Oh, actually dropped after pandemic a good amount. But all of these cards were very, very sought after for a long time. So the hype around this card, the Pikachu with the gray felt hat, was at an all-time high when it happened. People were trying to get in on the next big thing. Is this the next big thing? I think long-term, it definitely could be, right? But basically when we first started, this is what happened. Card, $114, $125, $131, whatever it may have been. People started panic buying this card up, and as the market had less cards on it, the price increased. Luckily, the Pokemon Company printed to demand and introduced a lot of cards to the global market, and we saw the dip that we did right here. So panic buying is a thing. Now let's talk about panic selling. This is why I believe if we stop buying this card right now, especially when it's at a floor. It's at a floor. We don't know if this is the complete floor, but it is at its current floor, right? So if we stop buying this card, even since I started looking up this video, I've seen more and more people decreasing their prices across the board. People want to get rid of their inventory. So what do? They undercut the cheapest on the market. And then multiple people start to do this, and we see the price of the card fall until the market starts to scoop them up, right? So that's what our play is here. We stop buying the card. We let the price keep falling. I apologize if you paid one of these exorbitant prices for the card, but there was no way it could sustain that sort of price with the PSA reports looking like this. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Panic buying, panic selling out of the way. So now let's take a look and compare it to some cards that are pretty similar, right? In price, in hype, maybe you could even say. Let's talk about Dragonite V. I don't know why I didn't start here. The Dragonite V, right? Unfortunately, we can only see the past year on the card. It came out 2 years ago, going on 3 now. But this card is actually held pretty decently with its release prices. Besides, and to go back on the panic buying, people will buy cards on release for high prices with the prospect that they may increase in value over time. A great example would be the Umbreon. Started off cheaper than the Rayquaza. Can you believe that? The Umbreon started cheaper than the Rayquaza. Rayquaza was like a $230 card on release, and the Umbreon $270, and the Umbreon was about $230, right? You fast forward 6 or 8 months down the line, Umbreon starts taking over. It's such a beautiful card. People see the artwork, and it goes crazy over time while that Rayquaza dropped in value. So this is where the panic buying really, it's a good example of that. But the Dragonite has held steady pretty much throughout its entire time. Had some peaks, had some valleys, but for the most part, we've kept around the $96 point, right? Pikachu's about 86 right now. Now let's go look at the PSA reports for the Dragonite, huh? Here we go. Population report. Let's take a look here, and you can see 7,260 total cards, right? Now, there's a lot of cards that have not been graded. We understand that the quantity of the cards isn't necessarily conducive of the amount that are at PSA. But Evolving Skies was a very graded set, and we can see that the graded total number of cards, we're not even talking 10s versus 9s, we're just talking total graded cards, is a fourth of the amount, right? And it is about the same price of the value. So we can assume, it's safe to assume that maybe there's a fourth of Dragonites out there. That's just an inference. Of course, we cannot guarantee that, especially with that person who was walking around with all those alternate arts. So that's the Dragonite. Next, let's get into the Umbreon from Evolving Skies. A very, very hype Pokemon. People love Umbreon. They love evolutions, right? So the hype for this card and the Moonbreon was very high. The artworks are very beautiful. We love good artworks around here. We know that. But again, same kind of case. Kind of has held steady at the same. I mean, it's had some pretty big valleys. I actually am an owner of this card, but it has held steady around like the $88 to $95 mark, right? Let's go look at the pop report, shall we? Again, actually less than the Dragonite. This one surprised me. 6,975 copies have been graded at PSA so far. Again, about a fourth of them of the graded cards that we've seen of the Pikachu. We're going to go ahead and get into the Aerodactyl from Lost Origin. Kind of a weird story. This one was actually, I believe, the most expensive card from Lost Origin on release. And that Giratina, beautiful, beautiful Giratina, finally, again, the panic buying maybe plays a factor. People bought up the Giratina card, and in literally no time at all, they had seen double the investment that they had put into the card. So this is why when cards come out, people are willing to pay higher prices than necessarily may happen in about a year's time because of the potential prospect of them going up, right? It happens. We've seen it. We've seen it a bunch of times. Another beautiful card. Look at this artwork. Are you kidding me? Right? There are, that I can see right off the bat, there are 5 different Pokemon in this, and it's like a prehistoric vibe. It's so, so gorgeous. I don't own this, and I would love to. And again, why would I spend $85 for the Pikachu with Gray Felt Out, which is a beautiful card, when I could spend $85 for this Aerodactyl card that people had to actually pull? It wasn't given away for free to anybody who wanted one, except, of course, it wasn't the case because of the bots and stuff. But that being said, I would rather have this Aerodactyl. And I've had a friend of mine offered to trade me some of my cards for a Pikachu of theirs. But I was actually about to do that. And then I started to think, like, why would I trade my rare and valuable cards that I've pulled myself, because I don't very often actually go purchasing cards, especially not in this price range, for something that isn't rare? Again, even lower numbers. We're at 4,011, right? So again, that's an eighth of what we were just looking at with the Pikachu. An eighth of what we were just looking at with the Pikachu. The Charizard, something brand new from 151. A little bit more expensive, of course, but it actually did start cheaper. And this is where, again, that panic buying, if you purchased this card, you couldn't wait, you didn't want to actually open it, you're just like, I'm going to buy the card, you would have actually seen a little bit of a gain, right? So that's that panic buying setting in once again. Another extremely gorgeous card. A lot of people came back to Pokemon collecting just for this card and 151 and all the amazing artworks in it. And let's take a look at the PSA Pop Report. This is a super hyped card. A lot of people are going to be grading these at any given time. It's not like one of those ones where people are holding them to grade. Usually they're trying to grade these quick, so if they want to sell it, they can, right? They can get rid of it, get off the card. Again, we're sitting around the same mark, 8,200. We had 4,000 on the Aerodactyl, kind of maybe an outlier. We'll see, right? 8,226 copies of the Charizard EX. Brand new card 6 months ago. So there are a lot more to hit the market of this. This is actually probably one of the more hype cards that we're going to see. The other cards came out 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago. This card just came out 6 months ago. There's going to be a lot more of these being pulled. There's going to be a lot more of these being reprinted. This number is not done yet, right? So probably one of the biggest numbers that we've seen, one of the biggest increases so far. Another brand new card, a little bit older than the Charizard. We got the Iono from Paldea Evolved, again, about that same price range. Another gorgeous card. I love full art trainers. This one is amazing. I love that they've started doing these special illustration rare trainers. They look awesome. Let's get it. The Paldea Evolved Pop Report, close to the Aerodactyl numbers at 4,300. I really should have probably just had them all up. I thought I could search a little bit quicker than this, so I apologize for that. But 4,300, again, a card that is extremely hard to pull. I haven't pulled it. I haven't opened a ton of Paldea Evolved, but it's not easy to get. This wasn't a card that you could just obtain. Again, the Pikachu wasn't obtainable for all. I understand this. The scalpers cornered the market, but essentially it was supposed to be that. And the Pokemon Company could have done 1,000,001 things to make sure that you only got one copy of the card, but multiple people were able to buy multiple copies of the card. That's when things get a little wild, right? Next card on the list, and the last one that we're going to talk about as far as cards that you pull and rarity, the Giratina VSTAR from Crown Zenith. This one was crazy expensive on release, and this is where that panic buying kind of bites you in the butt a little bit, right? This card, I think, was above 200. It's so hard to remember. $200 on release and has only fallen since, and all of these gold cards were above 100 or just about close to it on release, and they have all about halved their price. I mean, you could get this card for $60. This card for $60. This card for $60. Okay, so if I could get this card for $60, what do you think the PSA 10 is worth? Let's take a look here. Giratina V-Star, the secret rare, 9,000. Doesn't the Charizard came out 6 months ago, and it's almost at the Giratina's level, which came out at the end of 2022, right? Am I tripping there? 2023. No, beginning of 2023. It came out in Japan in 2022. Excuse me there, right? So 9,000 copies. Again, a pretty well-graded card. There's a lot of copies out there, but it's hard to pull, difficult to pull. Bring some rarity to the card as opposed to it just being included for free. Now, that's it. That's all I wanted to go over for cards that you could pull. But now we need to compare to other promos that the Pokemon Company has messed up in recent times. Starting with, gotta find the right one. This one's the right one, I believe. Special Delivery Bidoof. This one I remember being an absolute nightmare. I was on the Pokemon website again. Website crashing. It was during the pandemic. We understand. It was not an easy one to get. The Bidoof, 2,400 copies at PSA in total. Not to mention 740 only in the PSA 10. Like, this is a rare card. And the price reflects that. $259. Are you kidding me? The Pikachu was $180 at one point. You could pay $60 more and get an infinitely rare card than the Pikachu was. This thing was a mess to try to get. I don't know any of my friends that got one. I certainly didn't. And the pop report shows that it was a hard one to get in general, right? Next, we're going to look at the special delivery Charizard, which I got to make sure is the right one, which is this one. 18,000 copies. 18,000. This is the first card that we've looked at that similarly has similar numbers to the Pikachu, except the Pikachu just came out. This card came out going on 2 years ago now, right? 18,000. Only 3,500 of those are in a PSA 10. 1/5 of the cards that have been graded at, 1/6 of the cards that have been graded at PSA are a PSA 10. 1/6. Half, more than half of the cards that have been graded of this Pikachu are a PSA 10. More than half. That is crazy. And again, just came out. Now let's take a look at the Charizard's price. You're like, oh, it's probably got a similar price to the Pikachu, right? $43 you could get one. Oh, that's a damage. If you want it in your mint, you can get it for about $37, let's say, right? This card on release was crazy because it hit the market before Pokemon Center released it. I don't know how people got copies early, but they got copies early, and people were paying upwards of $400 for this card on release. Talk about FOMO. Talk about fear of missing out. $400. Talk about panic buying. This card finally was released to us later in the year. It started going for like $100 then, and it has only fallen really since. It's been at $50 for a year now. For a year. And it's only gotten cheaper. $50. This is the closest one that we've seen to the Pikachu card. As far as promos go, as far as numbers graded, and as far as where I think this card maybe could be heading. Right? Special delivery Charizard. I have one of these. I did not get it from the Pokemon Center. I was not lucky enough. You had to get an emailed code, and I never got the emailed code. They sent out those email codes a bunch of times. Never got one. Luckily, my friend did get me a copy, so I appreciate him for that, right? Next, and last but not least, the last card that they have really done in recent memory, which was the special delivery Pikachu from the Canada Pokemon Center. 10,000 copies total, graded at PSA. A little bit more rare than the Charizard, as you can see. About, what would you say, 2 times as rare? Maybe. It's hard to be speaking definitives about things like this, right? So, we look at the price. Special delivery Pikachu, $140. That seems a bit high. You could definitely get these on eBay for about $108, $120, right? And again, look at the price. I mean, this card, you would think, with the amount that have been graded and the amount that are out there, we're assuming this is a decent price for this card over time, I suppose. This card was expensive on release, right? And it's been expensive since because they didn't do any reprints or anything. But this card has been reprinted into the ground. 100,000 copies added to the market. Slash the price by $70. And it has only started to fall since. Because I think people finally are on the same wave as me. Why on earth would I pay an exorbitant arm and a leg for a promo card that is not rare? 27,000 copies. And just for y'all's visual representation, here is a graph I made of every single card that we talked about today. Look at the Pikachu. Look at the Pikachu. It towers over even the special delivery Charizard. This is a $40 promo right now. $40. $80 for this promo as it sits. If we stop buying the card, I do believe the market will reflect that. The Scream Pikachu cards were extremely hype. They're really cool. I understand this. They're dope. It's super sick, right? Seeing the most recognizable brand on earth do these really, really cool collaborations with artists, with skateboarding companies, with shoe companies, you name it. It has seen a lot of hype, and the streetwear people have never really been a stranger to these sort of activities, scalping, right? But it is kind of new in the Pokemon scene from like the pandemic. We really, really saw an uptick in the amount of scalping, right? So again, I'll just leave it there. I think I covered enough about the card today to really, really write home my point. And let me know if you have a differing opinion than I do on the card. If you think that this card is worth way more than $80, you're really dumb for not buying it right now. Or do you think we're not at the floor yet? We're not at the bottom. This card is going to fall more and more. I'm willing to die on the hill that it is going to fall more and more. And if it doesn't, then I'm just okay not owning one. I'm not going to have FOMO, not this time. What's poppin', y'all? Editing team player here. If you enjoyed the card animations, go ahead and comment which one was your favorite and maybe some that you'd like to see showcased in the future. These are the type of videos that we're going to be putting out on the channel from here on forward. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and the like would go a long way for a small channel like mine. That's it. Take care. I hope you have a great one.